Hey Y&R fans! Waving hand, welcome to Y&R Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. The intricate tapestry of interpersonal relationships on the Young and the Restless is perpetually woven with threads of secrecy, betrayal, and protective fervor, often culminating in confrontations that redefine the landscape of Genoa City. The scenario in which Tara gets hurt and subsequently goes to Kyle to reveal a secret about Claire is a potent catalyst for such a redefinition, embodying a critical juncture for multiple characters. This moment is not merely a plot point but a dense confluence of motive, history, and future consequence, centered around the primal instinct to protect a child and the devastating power of a long-buried truth. To understand the full weight of this encounter is to delve into the psyches of those involved, the history that binds them, and the inevitable turmoil that such a revelation promises to unleash. Tara's decision to seek out Kyle is born from a place of profound vulnerability and calculated desperation. Being hurt is likely both a physical and emotional state. She may have suffered a direct threat or an act of intimidation that made her feel her position, or more importantly, Harrison's safety, was untenable. Tara has historically operated from a position of self-preservation and maternal ambition, having once orchestrated an elaborate scheme to pass off Harrison as Kyle's son to secure a place within the powerful Abbott family. While her love for Harrison is genuine, her methods are often shadowed by manipulation. Her hurt, therefore, is a crucial trigger. It shatters whatever fragile sense of security she might have constructed and forces her hand. She can no longer hold the secret because the perceived threat, potentially from Claire or those associated with her, outweighs the risk of exposing it. In this moment, Kyle is not chosen at random. He is the biological father of her child, a man with considerable resources and, despite their tumultuous past, a shared investment in Harrison's well-being. Tara's approach is a strategic gambit. She is transferring the burden of protection and the responsibility of retaliation onto Kyle, effectively weaponizing his paternal instincts against a common enemy she is about to identify. Kyle's reception of this news must be viewed through the lens of his recent history and his current emotional state. Having just reclaimed his life and his son after a period of amnesia and manipulation in Paris, Kyle is fiercely, almost obsessively, protective of his reclaimed stability. His relationship with his son is the cornerstone of his identity. Furthermore, his romantic reunion with Summer has solidified a family unit he fought desperately to rebuild. Any threat to that unit is met with immediate and intense hostility. When a wounded and desperate Tara arrives with talk of a secret concerning Claire, Kyle's guard is already at its highest. Claire, at this point in the narrative, is likely a figure of some ambiguity or integration within the Abbott orbit. Perhaps she has been working at Jabot or has formed a connection with Summer or even Harrison himself, making her presence seem benign or even welcome. Kyle, therefore, is primed for a shock. Tara's revelation will not land on neutral ground but on the highly volatile fuel of a father's protectiveness. His initial skepticism will quickly be overridden by the horrifying plausibility of her claim and the evidence of her distress. The directive "stay away from her" is a primal, unequivocal command born of this instant recalibration of reality. In his mind, Claire is instantly transformed from a harmless acquaintance into a clear and present danger that must be quarantined from his family, especially his vulnerable son. The secret itself is the explosive core of this encounter. While the specifics can vary, the most dramatically resonant secret Tara could reveal is one that connects Claire to a dark and dangerous past, specifically linking her to the trauma surrounding Harrison. Given the show's history, the most potent revelation would be that Claire is, in fact, connected to the mysterious and sinister Angelica, the woman who was involved in Harrison's initial kidnapping. Perhaps Claire is Angelica's daughter, her protégée, or even Angelica herself under a new identity. This connection would be devastating on multiple levels. Firstly, it directly ties Claire to the single most traumatic event in Kyle and Summer's lives as parents, the abduction of their child. It resurrects a nightmare they believed was buried, reintroducing a ghost from their past in the most insidious way possible, disguised as a friend. Secondly, it suggests a long game, a plot of infiltration that is far more terrifying than a direct attack. The idea that the person who once stole their child has now insinuated herself back into their lives, potentially gaining access to Harrison again under a false pretense, is the stuff of parental horror. This makes Kyle's stay away from her not just a warning but a battle cry. It is a vow to erect an impenetrable barrier between this perceived viper and his family. The immediate aftermath of this revelation is a maelstrom of action and reaction. Kyle's first priority is containment. He will confront Summer with the urgent, non-negotiable demand to sever all ties with Claire immediately. This will likely create instant conflict between them. Summer, who may have developed a genuine fondness or trust for Claire, will be shocked by Kyle's abrupt and vehement decree. His evidence, the word of Tara, a woman with a proven record of deception, will seem flimsy and driven by past animosity rather than present fact. This creates a classic Y&R dynamic of conflict within a united front. Kyle, acting from a place of visceral fear and protectiveness, cannot understand Summer's hesitation. Summer, acting from a place of logic and measured judgment, cannot abide by his unilateral, alarmist command without proof. This rift, however temporary, is a direct result of Tara's revelation and serves to destabilize the very family unit Kyle is trying to protect. Concurrently, Kyle will almost certainly launch his own investigation. He will enlist allies, likely his father, Jack Abbott, or even Nick Newman, to dig into Claire's background. This investigation will unfold in the shadows, even as the public facade of Genoa City's society continues. Every interaction Claire has with Harrison or Summer will now be watched by Kyle with unbearable tension, every innocent gesture reinterpreted as a potential threat. The directive to stay away will extend into a covert operation to expose and neutralize Claire. This transforms Kyle from a businessman and father into a detective and a soldier, his life once again consumed by a crisis threatening his child. The psychological toll is significant. The Paris ordeal stripped him of his memory, and now this threat seeks to strip him of his hard-won peace, replacing it with pervasive suspicion and dread. For Tara, the consequences of her disclosure are double-edged. On one hand, she has successfully mobilized a powerful ally against a perceived threat. She has shifted the target off her own back and onto Kyle's, leveraging his resources and his rage for her own protection. This is a masterful, if desperate, power play. On the other hand, she has irrevocably exposed herself. By revealing this secret, she admits to having possessed knowledge that she withheld, knowledge of a dire threat to Harrison. This will raise glaring questions for Kyle and others. How long has she known? Why did she only come forward now when she felt personally threatened, rather than when Harrison's safety was first at stake? Her motive is revealed as selfish, not altruistic, which will erode any nascent trust and likely invite Kyle's wrath once the immediate crisis with Claire is handled. She may have won a battle but jeopardized her standing in the war for Harrison's world. The ripple effects extend to the entire Abbott and Newman clans. Jack Abbott, as the family patriarch, will be thrust into the role of strategist and stabilizer. He will be forced to balance his son's frantic demands for action with the need for concrete evidence to avoid making a catastrophic error. Diane Jenkins, now integrated into the Abbott family, will have her loyalty and mettle tested, likely aligning fiercely with Kyle and Summer against this new threat. The Newman family, particularly Victoria and Nick, who may have their own connections to or suspicions of Claire, will be drawn into the intrigue, their resources and agendas intersecting with the Abbott's crisis. The secret becomes a stone thrown into the pond of Genoa City, and the concentric circles of its impact touch nearly every powerful player. At the heart of this storm is the enigmatic figure of Claire. Whether she is a malicious actor playing a long con or a tragically misunderstood figure herself, caught in a web of someone else's making, is the central mystery that Tara's revelation ignites. If she is guilty, then Kyle's stay away from her is a justified and necessary defense. His actions become those of a hero protecting his castle. If, however, she is innocent, if Tara's revelation is a misinterpretation, a half-truth, or outright lie designed to achieve Tara's own ends, then Kyle's reaction becomes a tragic error, a persecution of an innocent based on the word of a proven liar. This alternative interpretation adds a layer of profound dramatic irony. Kyle, acting on what he believes to be absolute truth, could be systematically destroying a harmless woman's life, all while believing himself to be the righteous protector. This would make his eventual realization of the truth a moment of devastating guilt and shame. Ultimately, the scene of Tara's hurt confession to Kyle is a masterclass in soap opera storytelling because it operates on multiple levels simultaneously. It is a plot accelerator, injecting high-stakes danger into the narrative. It is a character crucible, forcing Kyle, Summer, and Tara to reveal their core selves under extreme pressure, Kyle's protectiveness, Summer's reason, Tara's desperation. It is a generator of conflict, creating rifts between allies and forcing uneasy alliances. And it is a thematic exploration of the lengths to which a parent will go to safeguard their child, even if it means embracing darkness, trusting an enemy, or potentially becoming a villain in someone else's story. The 3 words, "stay away from her," are so much more than a warning. They are the declaration of a war whose battles will be fought in drawing rooms and corporate offices, with words, investigations, and ultimately, with the unwavering resolve of a father who has lost his son once and will burn the whole city down before he allows it to happen again. The fallout from this single conversation will reverberate for months, proving that in Genoa City, the most dangerous weapons are not guns or knives, but the secrets we keep and the devastating moment we choose to finally tell them. The hospital room was a sterile sanctuary, its walls a pale shade of antiseptic white, reflecting the dim glow of fluorescent lights overhead. Tara Locke lay in the crisp, starched bed, her face pale but resolute, her eyes carrying a weight far heavier than the bruises blooming across her skin. The steady beep of the heart monitor punctuated the silence, a metronome to her racing thoughts. She hadn't wanted to end up here, not like this, but the events of the past few days had spiraled beyond her control, leaving her battered, both physically and emotionally. Her fingers clutched the thin hospital blanket, twisting it as if it could anchor her to the reality she was still trying to process. The secret she'd been guarding, the one that had gnawed at her for weeks, was no longer something she could keep buried. Not after what had happened. Not after Claire. Outside, Genoa City hummed with its usual chaos, a town where secrets were currency and trust was a luxury. Tara had come to this place seeking a fresh start, a way to escape the shadows of her past, but the past had a way of catching up, especially in a town like this. She'd built a fragile life here, one carefully constructed lie at a time, but now it was crumbling. The pain in her side flared as she shifted, a sharp reminder of the altercation that had landed her in this bed. She closed her eyes, replaying the moment it all went wrong, the moment Claire's name became more than just a whisper in her mind. It had started innocently enough, or as innocently as anything could in Genoa City. Tara had been at the Grand Phoenix, sipping coffee in the lounge, her mind preoccupied with business deals and the delicate balance of keeping her son, Harrison, safe from the tangled web of her own making. She'd always been good at compartmentalizing, at keeping her emotions locked away while she played the part of the poised, calculating businesswoman. But Claire had changed everything. Claire, with her enigmatic smile and her uncanny ability to see through Tara's carefully curated facade, had become a complication she hadn't anticipated. The memory of their last encounter burned in Tara's mind. It was late, the kind of night where the air felt heavy with unspoken truths. They'd met at Crimson Lights, the coffee shop in neutral ground where secrets could be whispered without fear of prying ears. Claire had leaned across the table, her voice low, her eyes intense. "Tara, you can't keep running from this," she'd said, her words cutting through the haze of Tara's denial. "You need to tell him. Kyle deserves to know." Kyle. The name alone sent a shiver through Tara's battered frame. Kyle Abbott, the man who had once been her anchor, her partner in navigating the complexities of their shared history. He was the father of her son, the one person she tried to protect from the truth she now carried like a lead weight in her chest. But Claire had been right, Kyle deserved to know. The secret wasn't just about Tara anymore, it was about Harrison, about the life they were trying to build, and about the dangerous game Tara had been playing to keep it all together. The altercation that had landed her in the hospital had been a direct result of that secret. Tara hadn't seen it coming, not really. She'd been careful, or so she thought, but in Genoa City, careful was never enough. The details were still hazy, flashes of raised voices, a sudden shove, the sharp crack of her body hitting the ground. She remembered the pain, the shock, but most of all, she remembered the fear. Not for herself, but for what would happen if the truth came out before she could control the narrative. Whoever had attacked her had known something, had wanted to silence her, but they hadn't succeeded. Not yet. The door to her hospital room creaked open, and Tara's eyes snapped to the figure in the doorway. Kyle. His presence filled the room, his broad shoulders tense, his jaw set in that familiar way that told her he was trying to hold himself together. His eyes, though, those were what caught her off guard. They were stormy, a mix of worry and anger, and something else she couldn't quite place. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. Tara, he said, his voice rough, like he'd been shouting or holding back tears. What the hell happened? She swallowed, her throat dry. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading, the one she'd been running from since the day she realized the truth about Claire. She gestured weakly to the chair beside her bed, her hand trembling. Sit down, Kyle. We need to talk. He hesitated, his gaze flickering over her bruised face, the 4 lines snaking from her arm. For a moment, she thought he might refuse, might turn and walk out, unable to face whatever she was about to say. But he didn't. He crossed the room in 2 strides and sank into the chair, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. Who did this to you? He demanded. Was it Ashland? Did he? No. Tara cut him off, her voice sharper than she intended. It wasn't Ashland. She took a breath, steadying herself. This isn't about him. Not directly. Kyle's brow furrowed, confusion etching lines into his face. Then what is it about? Tara, you're in the hospital. Someone attacked you. You can't just brush this off. I'm not brushing it off, she said, her voice softening. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for a moment, she saw the man she'd once loved, the man who had fought for her and Harrison even when the odds were stacked against them. But that was before Claire, before the secret that had changed everything. Kyle, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago. He leaned forward, his eyes searching hers. What is it? Tara's heart pounded, the words stuck in her throat like shards of glass. She'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, in the quiet of her apartment, in the dead of night when sleep refused to come. But now, with Kyle sitting there, his presence both a comfort and a threat, she felt the weight of it all crashing down. The secret wasn't just hers to tell, it was Claire's, too, and Claire wasn't here to defend herself. Not anymore. It's about Claire, Tara said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. And Harrison. Kyle's expression shifted, a flicker of unease crossing his face. Claire? What does she have to do with this? Tara closed her eyes, the memory of Claire's face swimming to the surface. The way she'd looked at Tara that night at Crimson Lights, her eyes full of conviction, her voice steady despite the danger of what she was asking. She knew something, Tara said. Something I didn't want anyone to know. Something I've been trying to protect you and Harrison from. Kyle's hands tightened into fists. Tara, you're not making any sense. Just tell me what's going on. She took a shaky breath, her fingers twisting the blanket again. Claire found out that Harrison, he's not just your son, Kyle. She faltered, the words catching in her throat. This was the part she dreaded most, the part that would change everything. He's not Ashlyn's. He's yours. Biologically. But there's more to it than that. Kyle froze, his face a mask of shock. What are you saying? We already know Harrison's mine. You told me that. We did the tests. I know, Tara said quickly, her voice trembling. But there's something else. Something about Claire. She was working with someone. Someone who wanted to use Harrison to get to you, to get to Jabot. She wasn't who she said she was, Kyle. She was playing a long game, and I got caught in the middle. Kyle stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. This is insane. Claire? The Claire we know? She's been nothing but loyal to Jabot, to me. Why would she? Because she wasn't loyal, Tara interrupted, her voice rising despite the pain in her side. She was using us, Kyle. She was using Harrison. I found out, and I confronted her. That's why this happened. She gestured to her bruised body, the hospital bed. Someone didn't want me to talk. Kyle paced the small room, his hands raking through his hair. This doesn't add up. Why wouldn't you tell me? Why keep this from me? Because I was scared. Tara's voice broke, tears spilling down her cheeks. I was scared of what it would do to you, to Harrison. I thought I could handle it, keep it contained, but I was wrong. And now Claire's gone, and I don't know who's coming for us next. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging between them. Kyle stopped pacing, his back to her, his shoulders rigid. When he finally turned, his face was pale, his eyes burning with a mix of betrayal and fear. Gone? What do you mean, gone? Tara's breath hitched. She hadn't meant to let that slip, not yet. But there was no going back now. Claire's dead, Kyle. I don't know how, or who, but she's gone. And I think whoever did this to me, they're the ones who did it to her. The revelation hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and oppressive. Kyle sank back into the chair, his hands covering his face. This can't be happening, he muttered. This can't be real. Tara reached for his hand, her fingers brushing against his. It is real. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner. But we need to figure out what to do now. For Harrison's sake. Kyle pulled his hand away, his eyes hard. You should have told me, Tara. You should have trusted me. I know, she whispered, her voice breaking. I know. The hospital room felt smaller now, the walls closing in as the truth settled between them. Tara's secret was out, but the danger was far from over. Whoever had attacked her, whoever had silenced Claire, was still out there, and they weren't finished. Not by a long shot. As Kyle sat there, grappling with the weight of her words, Tara's mind raced. She'd told him the truth about Claire, about Harrison, but there was still so much she hadn't said. The details of Claire's plan, the people she'd been working with, the real reason Tara had been targeted, they were pieces of a puzzle she hadn't fully solved herself. But one thing was clear, Genoa City was no longer safe, not for her, not for Kyle, and not for their son.